You weren't followed. Look. Better come in.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is a 2011 adaptation of the John le Carré novel from 1974. At its core, the movie is a story about a mole at the top of the circus, the nickname for one of Britain's secret services. The movie starts with a botched operation involving Agent Jim Prudhoe, a man sent on a secret mission to learn the name of this mole.
The Russians have planted in the British intelligence service.
The operation ends up becoming an international incident, which leads to the sacking of Control and his close underling, the veteran agent, George Smiley.
What about Smiley?
Smiley is leaving with me.
Control arranged this operation in the first place because he suspected that one of his senior officers was the mole. He had a handful of names, but just needs one. Their code names corresponded to the Tinker Tailor Soldier Sailor rhyme, which the book and movie take its name from.
Alaline, Tinker, Aiden, Tailor, Bland, Soldier, Esterhaus, poor man.
And the fifth?
Smiley.
Now this embarrassing possibility is swept away like dust off the porch, alongside Smiley and Control. That is, until a scalp hunter, one of the field agents named Ricky Tarr, calls Undersecretary Oliver Lakin.
He said there's a mole right at the top of the circus, that he's been there for years.
To get to the bottom of this, Lakin enlists the exiled Smiley to figure out who the mole is. Tinker Tailor is really a detective story that takes place in the secret world of espionage. Written by husband and wife writing team Bridget O'Connor and Peter Strawn, the 2011 movie abridges the novel's original narrative, rearranging several events by embracing the Jim Prudhoe case, jumping backwards in time whenever an event is relevant to unraveling the mystery. Aside from timing, the movie also takes liberties with locations. The action-oriented opener from the book, with submachine guns and Soviet military forces capturing Jim Prudhoe with smoke and fire, is replaced with a cafe sequence, and abbreviated by 2 bullets instead of a hail of them with barking dogs and searchlights. The movie, in that typical British fashion for the time period, has a ridiculously talented cast. John Hurt.
I should have left you where I found you.
Gary Oldman.
I'm retired, Oliver.
Toby Jones.
What's that shrug for?
Ciaran Hinds.
With respect, sir, it wasn't one of your civil servants that got killed, was it?
Colin Firth.
I was just passing. I thought I'd call in. Anne was in bed, but she insisted on getting up.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Visiting aunts.
I'll bet.
Stephen Graham.
Control asked me to man the phones that night. Said someone was doing a special job for the service. He wanted someone he could trust.
Simon McBurney.
You see, in their eyes, you're still a leaky ship.
Kathy Burke.
I heard Anne left you again. She doesn't deserve you, George.
Roger Lloyd Pack.
Can I speak to Mr. Gwilym, please?
Yeah, I'm his car mechanic.
And Mark Strong.
Who's that fella down there?
I don't know, sir.
Who is he? Beggar man? Thief? Why doesn't he look this way? Wouldn't you if you saw a bunch of boys flogging a car around a field? What's the matter with him? Doesn't he like us?
Everyone is great in this movie. I haven't seen any other Thomas Alfredson movies, so I can't comment on them, but this movie has superb direction. The story takes its time but doesn't waste it. It doesn't feel the need to press on until something has been conveyed, and it isn't afraid to use the actors to tell the story without being too verbose. The movie abridges the book's writing by allowing a lot of what would be textual dialogue to be acted out contextually through how characters act and react with each other.
Damn it, George. It's your generation, your legacy. I would have thought if there's any truth in this, then he'd want to,
Where long dialogue and conversations might lay out the exposition of something, Alfredson will use visuals and convey certain things that would be dialogue through those visuals, and sometimes montage. This works because of how excellent the actors are, but what makes it superb is that the cinematography is done by Hoyt van Hoytma, and the sets are absolutely wonderfully dressed. The attention to detail with its fixation on orange sets the time period, while Hoytma frames it with the subtle cinematic framing of the time period. The shallow depth of field, the precise blocking, the selective lighting are all used to emphasize the weight and emotion of the scenes. An excellent camera team can make a small movie epic, and Hoytma works with Alfredson and the set designers to create an expansive world, making a cinematic mountain out of dingy molehills. The emphasis on orange contrasts with the cold blues, greens, and dismal wet grays of the Cold War's drab world of desaturated hues. All of this is captured on film, and looks luxurious in comparison to the BBC television series, which was filmed in 16mm in a much more dry, contemporary environment, in a very unloaded style.
Now, George, let's talk about your old boss, Control.
The television series is theatrical, and I quite like it, but the movie is cinematic. It uses every trick possible to paint the spaces with light to match the emotional tone of the scenes. Blocking and framing are used to create distance or tension precisely when needed, and there is coverage enough for the editor to make choices that link together every thoughtful act of each actor. There aren't any wasted motions, and almost every frame contains a beautiful still image. When you make a film like this, all of these complex, thoughtful choices come across as effortless. And of course, to my joy, all of it is captured on 35mm, giving the movie the texture and contrast that gives it both a timeless quality and a resonant echo of the time period. Tinker Tailor the novel, of course, comes from John le Carré, which is the pseudonym of writer David Cornwall.
This is a name of French origin, meaning the square. How do you go about pronouncing it? Le Carré. From French, le carré. Le carré. Le carré. Le carré.
Cornwall's story on its own is rather interesting. The documentary The Pigeon Tunnel serves as an excellent general explanation for how Mr. Cornwall was born to a con man of a father and a mother who left him early in his life.
My father was a confidence trickster. Life was a stage where pretense was everything. Being off stage was boring, and risk was attractive. But above all, what was attractive was the imprint of personality. Of truth, we didn't speak. Of conviction, we didn't speak.
So you felt like a dupe?
No, I joined.
When his father arranged for him to study at Oxford, Mr. Cornwall decided to study foreign languages, and most likely was recruited into Secret World, the world of intelligence services. Cornwall served both in counterintelligence and foreign intelligence services domestically and abroad. Tinker Tailor was written after the reveal of the Cambridge 5 case and the discovery of the traitor agent Kim Philby.
When I came to write Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, it was Kim Philby's murky lamp that lit my path. MI6's brilliant former head of counterintelligence, once tipped to become chief of the service, who was also a Russian spy.
Tinker Tailor certainly takes its plot inspiration and the feelings that would arise from such a betrayal and the desire to have prevented it.
Halfway through my tenure in West Germany, Philby's defection was announced. His disappearance from Beirut and his appearance on the Moscow stage. That was shocking to the ethic of the secret services at that time.
Everyone was looking over everybody else's shoulder, and inside the intelligence community, there was a kind of shared paranoia. To my mind, there was a whisper around which created a tension, which went on working through me for a while after I left that world, which I then tried to express particularly in Tinker Tailor. Kim Philby, who'd been a very influential member of SIS and was actually probably in line to become its chief, was unmasked as a Soviet mole. Then we'd had George Blake, an extremely distinguished SIS officer who then turned out to have been working for the Russians and actually escaped from Wormwood Scrubs jail. There were leaks coming in from prominent Soviet defectors who were being kept in secret and were bubbling about the idea of a mole. All of this infected the story, obviously. I wanted somehow to create that secret world, the people living in a bubble, nobody trusting anybody, the mystery of who said what to whom yesterday, who was in the woodshed at 3 a.m. Anyway, the atmosphere is secret. You have nobody to trust but your colleagues. You don't tell your wife what you're doing, or very few do. You don't tell your girlfriends, your boyfriends, or whatever you've got. So you're thrown upon one another, and then you don't trust one another. So that really is a secret world within a secret world. Actually, this is not so far from corporate life. This is not so far from the ordinary world. And to imagine that there is a kind of secret, enclosed world where people behave one way, and there's a big overt world where people behave a different way, that's a mistake. And for me, the secret world is simply a metaphor for the larger world in which we live, where we also deceive one another, we deceive ourselves, we make up little stories, we act life rather than live it, and so on. So there was, even within that seemingly estranged community, there was a universality which I believed I could exploit, and it resonated with the public. People understood. They wanted to have their lives translated in terms of conspiracy to quite some extent. And that is still the relationship between man and the institutions that he creates.
It was always my argument that it was instinct rather than reason that drove Philby to do what he did. That thrill of stepping into the street, knowing what you know and they don't. It's the joy of self-imposed schizophrenia that the secret agent loves. To feel you're the hub of the universe is wonderful for the vanity. To be passing that pure gold to the Soviet Union, to your masters. Now do you love me? If I give you this, will you love me? I can imagine that voluptuous instinct very well. Not in myself, but in him.
If witchcraft is genuine.
Nothing is genuine anymore.
The journey for me has been one of the imagination. The imaginative refuge from reality. The recreation of chaos. Not in an orderly way, but in a comprehensible, individualized way that makes people feel not a la James Bond, I wish this was me, but more kind of, Jesus, I hope this isn't me.
George has none of the fantasy traits that James Bond has, but it could be said that he's a better officer than James Bond in almost every aspect. I mentioned before that Smiley is the product of the Cold War, and as such, Smiley is a cold person. George is patient, calculating, ruthless, and yet all of that is contained within in a way that the people around him seem to take as just being well-mannered. People speak to Smiley and take all sorts of liberties because Smiley comes across as sort of a shrewdish conservative character.
Let me be blunt. Not your style, George. I'm allowed to say that, surely. I am, after all, one of your oldest protégés.
You brought me in, remember? If you think I'm going to the bad, you've only got yourself to blame.
In the movie and the television series to a more extensive degree, Smiley is given shades of disrespect frequently by men that he himself recruited into the service, or that he is humoring. This is because even though Smiley is a professional, in his personal life he's betrayed by his own wife, who is unfaithful to him, and in a way that everyone seems to know about more than Smiley himself.
Don't forget to give my love to Anne, will you? One of the great marriages that always heads out.
Oh, come on, Jerry, out with it.
One of the frequent themes in Le Carré's books is betrayal and loyalty. This is because Cornwall's life in the service was most likely full of contradictions, operational conditions, and social circumstances beyond his control.
Although I squirm and I'm horrified by my behavior now, I still think it had to be done. It was you, Judas, you swine. How could anybody do it? How could anybody be as foul as you?
And your defense?
Was, well, sorry, Stanley, but you belong to a revolutionary movement which was determined to destabilize our country. We were at that time technically at war with the Soviet Union. You were on the wrong side.
Can you be so sure that you're on the right side as opposed to the wrong side?
Of course not. No, of course not.
Almost all the characters contain a piece of Le Carré in them. These works are shadows and reflections of the Cold War, told by a man whose internal conflict is in perfect synchronicity with the world of spies, and the conflicted spirit of humanity that was forced to choose between East and West, and take a side or be seen as a traitor. Le Carré's work from the literary perspective is honored in a different way from Ian Fleming's, or a lot of other action-oriented spy stories, because Le Carré's world is built on something real, and in the civilian world. Characters have tradecraft. They have to live a certain way. They have to speak a certain way. They have the extra layer of intelligence required to be in that business. For better or worse, they are spooks. But specifically, they are of the British variety from the 50s and 60s. And because of that, all of the material and social conditions of empire, communism, classism, international rivalries, and the consequences of these interactions are on display, highlighted, and written in triplicate.
As a good socialist, I'm going where the money is. As a good capitalist, I'm sticking with the revolution because if you can't beat it, spy on it. Don't look like that, George. It's the name of the game these days. You scratch my conscience, I'll drive your jag, right? No.
Le Carré's experience reflects the chill of the Cold War and the fall of the Iron Curtain. Smiley does the work of spies and counter-spies, and Le Carré writes about what it meant. To the outsider looking in, George Smiley represents, I believe, the agent that wasn't there when Cornwall believed he should have been. A man who fought for empire that no longer existed, loyal to a generation that was being sent out into the cold by social climbers and politicians. A man who was living in a world that he was a part of, but estranged from. Smiley, in my opinion, represents Cornwall's true identity. Smiley is a man who does what is right, and he alone is what makes the thing that he believes in real. Tinker Tailor reflects Le Carré's sense of betrayal, knowing that the service that he was a part of was infiltrated by a set of traitors and double agents, a black mark that will always be a part of his service history. I can confidently say that if you wanted to see a movie that took espionage seriously, then this is one of the best. That's why I suggest Tinker Tailor's Soldier Spy. The television series and the movie both found a tone and resonate harmonically with the original book in their own way, where the grass is greener, the spooks wear suits, and the Alvis is still the best car in the world.
I'm sure both of us, when we were young, subscribed to great visions. But not anymore. After all you've seen,